Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Barbara Patterson with us. And Barbara Patterson is the owner of a global coaching and consulting company, bringing the insights of state of mind to clients around the world. She helps leaders, entrepreneurs, and coaches access more clarity, creativity, have greater impact, and higher levels of performance in work and life. Barb has lived and worked in Europe and in the US. She has over 20 years experience coaching and working globally as both an internal executive and outside consultant. Her diverse global portfolio includes working with both large and small organizations and their leaders, supporting entrepreneurs in growing their businesses and mentoring other coaches. Barb, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. It's really great to see faces and even familiar names if I don't get to see your face. Really glad you're here. And I just want to start out by saying I'll share some things and reflections, but I'm really interested in having a conversation and a dialogue. And, I know for myself, it's in hearing other people's own personal reflections and the way things are looking or their questions that actually deepens things for me. And often it's not the teacher where we learn from, it's somebody else sharing. So I'm excited to be here with all of you and looking forward to just a conversation, an exploration, and see where it takes us. The topic that, we had talked about doing was around transformation and kind of this time of year. There's so much out there about what's your year going to be? Is this the year you're going to do it? Are you finally going to do your resolutions? All those things. And I was at home over Christmas and listening to one of those morning news shows. And they said that people over, I'm going to say like late 30s, maybe 40s, I don't remember, quit making New Year's resolutions because they're cynical. And it was just kind of an interesting comment because I have definitely joined the club of, I don't do those. I don't do resolutions. Let's just see what life has to offer. Let's see. But it was funny how it struck me because I just, noticed my mind getting a little curious about that. And I started to see that for myself, it's kind of true. Like I kind of saw this warped relationship I kind of have around getting my hopes up and then being disappointed in myself. And that, I didn't know this. I wasn't really aware of it, but I was like, oh, I'm like avoiding that feeling. Like I've turned that feeling into something rather than just thought in a moment or an experience. I had kind of, made a relationship and as a result had turned that into something. And so it just got me reflective about where does change, transformation really come from? And prior to coming across this about 7 or 8 years ago now, across the understanding of the principles, I really thought transformation was work. It was on us. It was on me. It required will and discipline and maybe a personality change. And it required digging and excavating into my past and into my issues so that I could really get over something. That's the way it looked to me. I thought that's how change happened. But when I started to listen to Sid and I started to listen to the teachers in this work, something started to wake up inside of me. Something began to strike me that maybe there was another way. Maybe there was something else available, because when they would talk about our spiritual nature, our true nature, and our innate well-being, my intellect, and when I looked to my life, I would argue that, you know, like life is good, but I got stuff to work on. You know, like life would be better if I could change these things in myself or in my life. And, but what was interesting was even though my mind was doing that, something else was nudging me to pay attention. That maybe there's something here I don't know. That maybe there's a different way, a different understanding. And just by being willing to kind of stay in the conversation, I started to see transformation in a new way. And I just thought I'd share some of that today as a conversation starter and to see what resonates for you and to begin a conversation, like I said. But I wanted to share, I was listening to one of Sid's tapes, and I want to share what he said and use that as a place to begin. Said, it was one of his earlier tapes, and he said, "Do you have that feeling of niceness? That's it. That's what you're looking for. The secrets to life are within your beautiful feelings, and you contact those from within. The feeling of sheer happiness, sheer joy, just to be alive. Grateful for what you've got. It's a feeling of gratefulness. It's a feeling of love. It's a feeling of understanding. It's a feeling of all things beautiful. So always look for the beauty, because eventually, when you find the true secret, you'll find yourself, your true self. And when you find this true self, you'll find what you've always wanted." Now you should listen to him say those words. But they just really hit me the other day, and especially in kind of reflecting on this topic. Because to be perfectly honest, when I first came around and wanted to understand, I was still a striver, you know, still on the path of self-improvement, needed fixing, and how were the principles going to help me and help me help my clients. So when people would say, when those teachers would say, just look to the feeling, I could not fathom what they were talking about. That just sounded like they were asking me to settle in life, and that didn't sound good. It sounded like, well, I guess the way it looked to me back then was something else was required. To have a good life, to improve, to transform, something else other than just being in a good feeling was required. And even to this day, I feel like a baby on the learning curve around this, because I can find myself still drawn and compelled to kind of work it out, figure it out, work on myself. But then in a really lovely way, I come back to what Sid is saying, or a teacher reminds me, or something wakes me up inside to just orient myself in a new direction. See, I was oriented in the direction of my psychology, my behavior, my personality, my past, that those were all the gateway to change. So in a way, I was very interested in my psychology, my current mood, my feelings, my thinking. And I was in there working it all out because I thought I needed to know why I was the way I was to have change or to be happy. And I had to find the root cause and the root source, or it wouldn't change. And so I was completely looking in that direction. But as I said, something inside of me kept nudging me to listen, to stay in this conversation, even though my intellect at times couldn't grasp what was being said. Something inside had me stay. And as I stayed and I got more curious about this other direction of our innate nature, of innate well-being, I I had looked and had so much evidence about why I needed to change and what needed to change about me and all of that and why I was the way I was. And it was like all what I saw was all this awareness, all this self-awareness that somehow I had this idea that enough self-awareness would lead to change. But actually, as I got more perspective, I started to see all that self awareness just basically led to more self consciousness. A lot of me on my mind. And in a really nice way, it was a humbling moment when I saw, like, wow, what if I could move through the world with less of me on my mind? What I could feel the freedom of that. And orienting myself in this direction of our true nature, our essence, to have my own understanding, my own relationship to that. Because, in my years of seeking, I'd always been interested in spirituality and loved that part of life. But in a way, I think I thought it was my job to wield it, to do what I needed it to do. Like I'm overstating, oversimplifying, but in a way it looked like somehow I still needed to be doing something about even that. And with the principles and with staying open and looking in a new direction, I started to have my own internal experiences of a potential new way, of kind of more perspective and seeing that there might be something in this unknown for me. There might be something fresh and alive. And at first it looked like I had to rely on the faith of the other teachers. Do you know what I mean? Like, do I have to trust them? Like it looked like I needed to trust them to keep, oh, okay, I guess if you say so, like it was kind of a little bit of that. But truthfully, it wasn't that kept me coming back. It was something inside of me, my nature, our true nature, that wisdom kind of compelling me to keep looking and keep orienting. And when I got as curious about that true nature as I had been about my psychology and my life and, having a good life, I started to see a couple things. And one of them was this idea of the past. Again, because I'd been really into transformation and into people, how to help people and, help people change and all of that. I also had this idea of potential, that somehow potential was something to live up to. And I really wanted to live up to my potential, right? I had, but I never felt like I was. So it was like potential was also kind of this thing. And one time again, it was actually listening to a Sid tape, and I don't remember what he said or anything, but he was talking about the past. And I had heard, the past is in the past. I had heard that before, but it hadn't really landed. It was a good idea. It was a belief. Oh, I kind of get that. But I didn't have my own kind of knowing of that. But what happened is when I was listening to him, I had this realization that I was looking to my past to determine what was possible for me. I was looking to my past behavior, my past successes or failures, to decide who I could be and what I could do in the world. And I could see that I had linked the past and potential together. But in that moment, something happened and they separated. And I saw, oh, my potential, our potential lives in the moment. It has absolutely nothing to do with the past. All that happens is I look behind me, I look to the past, I bring it forward in my memory, and I make it part of the equation. That's it. That's all that was happening. And as soon as I saw that that's what I had been doing, I started to see like, oh yeah, like potential is this innate nature. It is the unknown. It is that spiritual energy behind all of life. That's the definition of it. It's a living thing, and you hear different teachers talk about we create something from nothing, you know, that we can have a fresh experience of ourselves in any moment. That's potential. We can have a new thought, a shift of consciousness, a new understanding, a new idea in any moment. That's potential. We reside in that. We're a part of that. So all of a sudden, potential wasn't something to arrive at. It's just a part of life. It's a part of who we all are. We swim in that. And in any moment, something can look one way, and I can have a realization or a new thought or get a little perspective, and it looks completely different. That potential is innate. That's all of us have that ability. And when I saw I had been linking the past to that, I could see that by not bringing the past forward, right? By just sitting and getting comfortable and seeing the fluid nature of life, seeing the potential to have a shift of consciousness, and I'm not manufacturing it, to see that it's innate in every human being to have a fresh start, a reset, a new thought, new understanding, that's innate. We aren't making that happen. That's a part of who we are. I started to really feel hopeful in a different way. Not hopeful that I would change, but just started to feel the possibility of anything kind of being up for grabs, including what I had defined as my personality. That I started to see the fluid nature of personality, that we aren't this set thing. Like I said this before, but if I had to go to a court of law and prove I was an introvert, it wouldn't hold up, right? Because I'd have lots of other examples where that wasn't the case. But I had been identifying myself with these mental constructs because of my orientation towards psychology and behavior and thoughts and, personality and all of that. I had been making up who I was and putting these mental constructs, these limitations, these innocently about who I was, what was possible for me. But as I began to look in the direction of thought, right, and understand consciousness and mind and how it all comes together to create our experience, all of a sudden, all those ideas that, I used to hold firm to, like just looked really real to me about who I was, started to get shaky in a nice way. All of a sudden, the potential of having a new experience of myself or being able to serve in a new way or connect with people in a different way started to look really doable. It didn't look like some personality I had to overcome or a character I had to take on. All of a sudden it looked like, oh yeah, that's totally doable, possible. I don't ever know what's going to be served up in the moment, but the potential is there. And the transformation isn't coming from my will or my discipline or my focus even. That transformation and shifts of understanding, shifts of perception are a spiritual innate capability that we all have. It's a given. And you start to see the ordinariness, everyday reliability of it. It comes forward, fresh thinking, wisdom in the moment, ideas in the moment, helpful small things come to us every day. in really ordinary, wonderful, helpful ways. So all of a sudden I wasn't trying to be confident, about something or muster up about something. Just started to see the reliability of our own innate nature to come forward for us in a really helpful way. Then this idea of the unknown and potential shifted even more fully. So, you know, we talk about being in the unknown and being oriented in the fresh or the new. Well, for me, and a lot of the clients I've worked with, I can see the tendency is to want to have certainty, right? Innocently, we kind of want to have certainty that we're on the right path, that we're going to make the right decision, that we're doing the right thing, that if we try something new, it'll go well, kind of all those things. Well, when we see and we understand feelings and we understand, that feelings come from thought in the moment, our experiences are temporary, we start to get more comfortable in whatever feeling, whatever experience we're having. We don't take our feelings, or this is what I've seen for most of us, we just don't take our feelings, our experiences as seriously. And with that different relationship to them, we're willing to try new things, to get in over our heads, because we see, not because we're guaranteed it's going to go well, right? Which is what I wanted before. But because I can rest in the certainty and knowing that something will come forward to help me. That being in the moment, in life, out there engaging, whatever that looks like, that something will occur to me and be helpful. We'll figure it out. I won't figure it out internally first, even though that's the way I thought I could. That if I spent enough time thinking it through, that it would guarantee a smoother ride or a certain outcome. But it really, really doesn't. So you start to rest in the certainty of your true nature, of the living wisdom that comes forward, of every human's capability to have helpful thinking come through and help us figure it out. I can think of a number of examples where something wasn't going very well. One time I was teaching, and I think it was my first kind of 3 principles workshop. And in the middle of it, I got totally insecure and I got self-conscious, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? They're looking at me like this is not making any sense. But because I was teaching, I kind of had to just keep going. And what started to happen was, because I had to keep going, I just kept saying things and teaching. And eventually that noise, that chatter got quieter, and I got more present, and we found our way, right? But what was so interesting to me after that wasn't that it, it went well or it didn't go well. It was, wow, even in the midst of my most insecure moment, something occurred to me to say. Even when I was the most kind of internally stressed, something helpful came through. And just following and staying in the game and we found our way. We found our way. And that to me is an example of what's possible for us everywhere. We're trying something new in our lives, in our work, or we're wanting to connect with people in a different way, to just see that we can rely on that true nature, that innate nature, every human's capability to have fresh thinking, a thought come through in a helpful way. It's really seeing that in the moment, that wisdom is responsive in the moment. And again, just coming back to, I wanted all the wisdom, all the plan, all the guarantee, and then I'll do it. Just give me the formula. I got it, but it just doesn't work that way. And the less attached I got to that, knowing that, we'd rise to the occasion, we'd find our way, we'd find our footing. that I can handle a feeling of insecurity. I can handle a feeling of panic, right? I started to see like, oh man, I kind of avoid things to avoid certain feelings. Well, that began to not make sense because feeling is just a temporary thought experience. It's temporary, it goes away. I can handle that. And you start to see then from that place we have freedom of mind. We're just more naturally following through and experiencing a momentum and being engaged and connected in life in a different way. That's natural. See, before I was efforting at all that. Right? And what's been so interesting and why I read that quote from Sid is because what looked to me like follow that good feeling, just kind of go there, like that's enough. I'm beginning to get it. 8 years later, they may be onto something, right? But to keep looking there, like that this idea that something else is required, more thinking, more excavating, more managing myself to just orient myself in a different place. All of us, when we orient ourselves in the direction of what's innate for us, our true self, I know wisdom, can sound so big, and I'm trying to think of another word in the moment, but the way I find it is it's like this creative intelligence behind all of life. It comes through in really practical ways, day to day, moment to moment. And seeing that has done more for my certainty, experiencing myself in new ways than all the years of working on myself. So I'm going to take a break here and would just love to hear from you guys. What, if anything, is resonating, what you're seeing for yourself, what you'd like to share, and of course, any questions. You're just all reflective. I'll share a little bit more, but I would love, like the other thing I want to say is because of my past training and my past work, I was very much kind of, you go learn a model or a methodology, you understand it intellectually, and then that's what you share, right? That was kind of a lot of been in the organizational development, leadership development, coaching for 25 years. And I had a lot of ideas and things I believed. And when I first started learning the principles, there was a lot that was said that I believed. But I remember one time really seeing that my desire to want to share this, to want to be good at it, to want to even make a difference, was actually keeping me from letting things land in a new way for me. And I think literally in one kind of moment, I had a talk to myself and said something like, you're fired. Like this, you can't. This is not. You aren't teaching this. Like you go for yourself only. Have your own personal learning curve, your own journey, your own relationship to this understanding. Forget about teaching it, sharing it, or your clients or your family who would really benefit, like all that stuff. And just get really curious from a personal place. And the reason I share that is I think at that point, a tension or something, relaxed in me. And I would hear again kind of teachers say, just share what you know, share what it looks. Well, then to me, that was an invitation to know more. Right? Oh, well, then I got to know more. Oh, is grounding the thing? Then I need more grounding, right? Like it was constantly this thing, and I could just see the setup inside for me around that. So everyone, every single one of us listening to this, every single teacher, when you listen and they share from a place of what's real for them, what matters to them. And in that, all of us have been really blessed by it, And I love all the different teachers out there and all the different ways. And I'm so grateful to all of them, every single one of them. I can't help but call out Amy because she's on the phone and I can see her name, and who's been doing this for years. And just want to encourage and invite all of you, for whatever it's worth, to just go for that. Go for your own journey, your own realization, your own discovery, your own curiosity. And you won't be able to help but see whatever is valuable for you. It's like George used to say to me, well, you don't have to worry. You're not going to get any theory of relativity insights, like it seems like wisdom comes forward in a way that's for you. And I was like, well, what do you mean, George? But I say that because it seems to be true. Right? That wisdom comes forward in a language that means something to us, in examples and insights and aha moments that mean something to us. And it helps me because then all of a sudden the idea of comparing my own journey, my own pace, my own life to someone else's just doesn't make sense. Because we're all just doing our best. We're all on our own journey here. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Yeah, Chris.
My first question is, how can we ask you any questions if you keep answering them before we ask?
Well, then I'll just shut up.
Hey, and I thought I'd try to come up with a really stupid question, because that way, because I know others have questions and you just need someone to break the ice. Yeah. But we really can't share this, can we? Unless we bump into somebody who wants us to. I mean, the best I've been able to do with my family is, like you just said, and enjoy my life more and hope that somehow it has an effect on them. I have, a 20-year-old son living here, and I am the last person he goes to for advice. But he likes to hang out and talk, and so, which is good. But I just, I related to so much in what you said, and you answered my question. I was recently in a situation with somebody that I'm trying to keep private, but I had a friend who was really in a bad place, and it was a friend, not a counselor, a therapist, or their coach, a friend. And it was a really tricky situation, and it was suicidal. It was a really terrible situation, life and death situation, which I'm still sort of recovering from. And the one thing I did, for better or worse, is every time this person, would say things, even I couldn't like drill a hole in someone's head and pour in the three principles or their heart or whatever. But you tell me if I did good or not. But when this person said things repeatedly that just weren't true, that's where I drew the line and said, I either asked, is this true? Are you really a worthless, terrible person that doesn't deserve to live anymore? Because, and anytime I came into the conversation where I was like, well, I just said BS. When I heard pure BS, I called that back. And I don't think there's any way to get someone out of when they're that deeply depressed and upset and their head is spinning so badly. But one thing I did keep doing is like, no, I don't believe, yeah, this person was just punishing themselves terribly to the point where they were, they were literally getting ready to pull the trigger on a gun and kill themselves. And, and basically after the incident, and there was ended up being police and all this stuff, all I could do was like weep and call a friend. But I felt like I could not, I'm not a professional therapist. I don't know. But anyway, the only thing I do remember doing over and over again was like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like what you're saying is true. And the only thing I did do is call real professionals and sort of step aside. And I'm still in conversations with this friend right now, and they're getting professional help. But I wanted so bad to just shake this person and say, it's an illusion. But whatever. I don't know if that was a question
Yeah.
I wish there was a way to make people learn, what I would like to share, but I can't.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, how lucky for him, assuming it's a him, that he had you with him. I think that we underestimate the power of just our presence, of a human to human, soul to soul connection. And we worry that, the right content has to come through to make a difference. I got to say the right thing. I got to help them see this and underappreciate the power. And that's kind of what, Sid was pointing to, what a lot of those teachers would tell me, quit, move in the direction of the feeling. And seeing that presence, our presence, is what's touching people. It's what wakes people up. It's what comforts. It's what calms. It's where connection comes from. So your willingness to just be, the job is already done. And things came forward for you to say. Now, you had your own feeling level going on, right? But your own feeling state isn't an indicator of how it's going. It's just an indicator of how you're feeling. You're thinking in the moment. That's it. But your intent, your desire to be, to serve, to love, that's it. That's what's having the impact in the touching them. And that's true for all of us that share this, that work with other people, but also in our family. There are definitely a couple family members that I really wanted them to get this when I first started learning this. I thought it would help them, right? I mean, really innocently, like, oh my gosh, this would just so help. And so I would try and teach them the principles, and it would, like, as you can imagine, go south. And then I, would get a little perplexed. But I realized what they were responding to wasn't what I was saying. It was my feeling, and I had attachment. They needed this. Something was wrong with them, and they needed my help. So at a feeling level, I think that's what was going on. But when I realized I had this kind of agenda that wasn't serving, I let it go. And I just came back to, I love them. It's like I have a cousin that died a few years ago from alcoholism, and, his liver failed. And it was really interesting because you can imagine the drama around the family. And he had children, and, it was rough, and everyone kind of had their own experience as he was going through it. And I remember before he died that I had this thought, like, yeah, I really want him to change. I really wish he could see something. Wish he could feel how much we all love him. I did. I wanted that. But I also realized I love him anyway. And that's what I was going to ride. And with our family and even our clients, it's kind of being able to see beyond their behavior, beyond their life circumstances to their own innate well-being. Doesn't mean that if there isn't a window or an opportunity, I'm not going to take it to share, to maybe connect them with somebody. It doesn't mean I'm going to give up, but what's leading is no longer my worry, my concern, my agenda. You know, what's leading is that feeling. Does that help, Chris?
It does. And when no one was, we had our typical three principles silence, which is always so interesting because everybody kind of just grooves on it, including the speaker. I was just thinking how nice it is, even if I had no questions or anything to share, to be in these webinars, and how nice it is to be with people that know that we're all innately okay, that in our core we're okay, because I spend a lot of my days and nights where I feel like I'm, in that respect, I feel alone. And it's so nice to plug into these groups, even when there's no questions. It's just so nice. And what you said, it's like a lot of what you said, I've heard one way or the other before, but I still needed to hear it.
Yeah, that's right. Me too. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Who'd like to go next?
Sandy wrote a comment in, and I'm not sure if it's because her internet's not working very well, but I'll read it for you. She says, yes, that's where I'm at right now, immersing myself in 3P in whatever way I can, and curious about all those models and frameworks I relied on and that have served me so well professionally. Did you find that you have abandoned those to embrace the 3Ps?
Yes and no. So when I was first learning, I would hear like teachers kind of say, are you, can't even think the words right, but is this all you do? Like, you can't do anything else in the principles. And so I kind of would get on myself or feel this internal pressure that, I could only teach the principles. But because I was learning, I didn't feel great at that. I was still, but I had clients immediate, I had my own business. So one of the things I would just say to that is, do what occurs to you in the moment. There is no right way of teaching this. There is no formula. Wisdom comes in the moment, and follow that, and you'll see. So in the moment, I never know what will occur to me to say or do. So I think that's the most important thing. But the other thing I will say is, because I was married, like, those ways were such a habit, like so ingrained in me, because I'd spent years teaching it and doing it to myself and, all of that. There was value for me saying, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to, kind of just completely look for the understanding. I'm going to look to understand thought, not my thinking, but thought and consciousness and mind. And to really see and be in the learning curve of the principles, because every time I had a backup plan, like, oh, well, I could always go here. I could always work on myself here, or I could pull this thing in with the client. I could feel that in a way it was keeping me from seeing more here. It's from seeing thought in a simple way, from really seeing where our experience comes from seeing the incredible creative intelligence behind life, and really seeing that. See, I thought I had issues to overcome and my clients had issues. So I had a tendency, like I was like I could assess somebody very fast about what they were up against, what their issues might be. I was like, and then we could get to work on that, right? So that was a habit. My mind would always go there first. But when I started to look in the direction of innate well-being, that there is no such thing as issue, it's just thought and coming alive in the moment, that we aren't this set thing. All of a sudden, when I started to see that more and more for myself, then the idea of working with somebody on their issues just didn't make sense, right? And I would catch myself like assessing people. Like, I've always considered myself intuitive and a good read of people, but I had this realization, oh, that's thought too. And as soon as I draw a conclusion, I kind of stop learning, stop seeing. Then I'm building a strategy or a plan against a conclusion I've drawn. So I started to see, like, oh, what if I stayed clueless? Like, what if I started to see that being ignorant was a gateway to deeper connection and understanding somebody. So I might have my first conclusion, my first assessment come up, but I was curious, like, well, what else? What else don't I see right now? What else is there to understand about this person or this thing? And in a way, just got more comfortable being there than in all my previous methodology. Does that help, Sandy? I know she's typing. Anyone else? Great, thanks, Sandy. Thoughts, questions? Reflections. Great, Amy. Great.
Well, we're all homesick today, so that's why I have my picture up. But I just want to say how beautiful this has been, Barb.
Thanks,
to
Amy.
listen to. And that's all.
Feel better. Thanks for hanging with us. Yeah. Bonnie, it looks like someone else might have sent a chat. I just can't read them. I can see.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. Yes, she said, can you talk about the subject of fear? That's from Martha.
Hi, Martha.
Martha, do you want me to unmute you so you can speak? Let me see if. Are you?
Oh, yeah.
There. Are you there?
I'd love to hear a little bit more of what you mean, Martha.
Okay.
There we go.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
It's just something that I struggle with. I think that I'm sort of a fearful, anxious person, and it's hard for me to throw myself into doing new things. So that's something I struggle with. I don't know. So I just was wondering if you have.
No, I absolutely. And, as I share, feel free to ask more or comment or anything. So, well, first of all, like me too, and I think everyone would raise their hand, that we all have those places where it looks scary, or we feel incompetent, or it just looks like a bad idea to go there. Like, we all have those places. And when I look in the direction of trying to overcome my fears, that means I've turned fear into something other than, sometimes I'm afraid, sometimes I'm not. Right? With the understanding of the principles, we see that fear is an expression and an experience of thought in the moment. When I look at myself as a person with stagnant issues or things to overcome, fear looks like something I got to work at,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when we really look and keep it simple, what if fear is not a thing? Insecurity is not a thing. Discipline is not a thing I have to work on.
Mm-hmm.
All that we do as humans, all that's ever happening is we experience thought in the moment. Sometimes I feel afraid. Sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I feel afraid, I hate that I'm afraid, which intensifies the afraid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I feel afraid, I think I should be afraid, and that intensifies, you know, like you just see. But all of it is coming from thought in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I'm not afraid, like I know this is maybe like stating the obvious, but when I'm not afraid, do I have a problem with fear?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
You know, I remember working with this one woman, and it was with a mentee and her client, and she was saying we had time with the client, and the client was just really seeing things and in a great feeling and excited about what she was seeing for her work and a few things. And then we were at a break, and the mentee said to me, when are we going to deal with her self-worth issue? And I was like, what self-worth issue? And then she said, because it was her client, oh, she has a self-worth issue. And I didn't say anything to the mentee at that point. I was like, well, you know, it hasn't really come up, so we're going to deal with kind of what's up. But what was interesting then is, I think it was like the next session or something, so it came up. Mm-hmm. And then what was so interesting was to watch how she said, she in this great place, and then she said, oh, but I have an issue with self-worth in my mother. Now, as soon as she said that, her mood plummeted, right? Of course it does.
Yeah.
Right? Because she had thinking that she has self-worth issue and that it's a problem and it's tied to her mother. Now, I'm not judging any of that. And I'm not, you know, I'm not drawing any kind of conclusions about that. But when we just look to understand the principles, it makes sense that if when that thought is alive, her mood plummets.
Mm-hmm.
When she believes she has an issue, this permanent kind of thing to deal with, to overcome, of course we feel heavy, we feel burdened, we feel like, you know. Mm. But what was interesting is to see it. Now, did you have a self-issue problem in our last session? What do you mean? Well, like, was self-worth a problem in our... And it was funny, just by like getting really paring it down, keeping it really simple, she saw, oh, it's thought. Mm-hmm. It's thought. That's all that happens innocently for all of us. Yeah. And some of us have ones we've just are habitual. It just looks that way to me. You know, it just looks. But the direction isn't in working that out and figuring that out and overcoming it. The direction is understanding where our experience is coming from, being in a good feeling. Oh, hi, you again? You know, is this resonating for you, Martha?
Yes, not taking it so seriously. I'm relatively new to the principles, so I'm still just trying to.
That's great. I'm glad you're here.
I'm trying to work this out.
I know.
Something to work at. Yeah. But I'm somebody, I mean, I resonated with a lot of what you were saying about, like, I'm going to work this out. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to understand it. I'm going to apply it. And it's like, no, this is not the paradigm anymore. So the way I'm used to dealing with problems is, you know, it's just long-term habit, and it's new. So the whole idea of just not taking something so seriously because you know where it's coming from and you know that it's temporary and fleeting, it's like when you're in it, man, it sure feels real. You know, there's a lion there, you know, it's
absolutely. And that no matter how long you've been in this, see, this understanding doesn't take away our humanness. You know, it's not a formula for overriding our human experience.
Right.
But when we understand when we see this more and more, it is amazing to me because we seem to ride the ride easier. We
Yeah.
all will get caught up. We'll all, start figuring it out, working it out, looking like this is something. But here's the wonderful thing. This understanding, what you're seeing will come forward for you, and you'll wake up. You'll remember. A shift in consciousness. You'll go, oh, wow, look at me. Oh, I'm really bearing down. Oh, wait, why don't you let that go? Something you'll see, and you don't have to make that happen. That happens. That happens.
Well, as new, I think I came across this in the early fall, maybe, of this past year, so very new. But what they say is true. As soon as you're introduced, as soon as you have that little introduction, it starts to change things in tiny ways. And I've got shelves of self-help books, shelves of them. It's ridiculous. And it's like, I stopped reading self-help books. It's like, okay, focus
And
here.
that's all love. It's really nice to appreciate those things, the difference that's taking place.
Yeah,
that's
powerful. I've stopped moving on, it's really powerful. So thank you.
I'm really glad you're here. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Any other questions, comments, reflections?
Hi, this is Zoe.
Hi, how are you, Zoe?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I have a question about that living in the mystery of not knowing and letting that small thinking insecurity mind, how just that versus divine mind, divine consciousness, divine thought. My insecurity is that my little mind thinking, and if I can just trust. Can you get a hint of what I'm asking? How do we get to that good feeling place when we're feeling insecure, I guess would be in situations?
I think what I would say is when we get more comfortable being uncomfortable, things just seem more fluid. See, as long as I'm in any kind of experience I want to get out of, I'm adding to it in a way, and so I think part of what the understanding naturally does for us is when we understand what feeling really is, and that there's no way to get out of that human experience. We're going to feel, and it's a wonderful, beautiful thing. What I've began to see, I think, is true for a lot of people. I know it's true for me. Is my compassion for myself just naturally skyrocketed. I just started more understanding of my insecurities, my fears. I can be really push and kind of try, and I just more compassionate about myself around those things, and that compassion then extends to other people. But in my compassion, things, just allow it a little bit differently. See, here's the thing to know. Reactions aren't permanent. Nothing is permanent. Reactions go by, and so that's true no matter what we're feeling. So really seeing that, knowing that, having an insightful understanding of what feelings really are, that feelings aren't bad, that all reaction passes. All of those things really help us kind of just be in life more.
Trust the process and don't let my thinking hijack me around
Right.
whatever it is I'm feeling in a circumstance, but trust that it will pass. And
Well, if you
I
look, if you
uh-huh.
look, like, here's the good news: you don't have to trust. If you look at your own life, you'll see that every reaction you've ever had has passed. That's just the way it
Mm-hmm.
works. So you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
trust it. That's just the way it works. And the other thing I want to just say is, years ago, my mom had this picture of this soldier on the staircase, and it was like one of those a painting where the eyes seem to follow you. Now, I was little when we lived in that house. I don't know, like 6, 7. And I can remember every night when I went up to bed, I would be like, it's just a picture. It's just a picture. And then pretty soon I was like sprinting up the stairs in panic and terror because the eyes were watching me, right? But, I would like have this panic every night, even though I was sitting there trying to tell myself it's just a picture. Well, what was funny was sometime in the last, I don't know, 4 months, 6 months, I'm in my house and I'm going down the stairs and there's this huge, I think they're called centipede, those things with like a zillion legs, which freak me out. And so I'm like totally panicked about this thing and I get rid of it. I try and put it outside, whatever. Well, what was so funny and interesting to me is every time I went down the stairs, because I was doing laundry that day, I would tell myself, it's gone. Oh, it's not there. But then I would find myself like shooting down the stairs as if the centipede was going to jump on me, But it's a very lighthearted, different way of how I could see. Listen, even with everything, I still would have these insane little terror moments where it felt real that this centipede was going to come out of nowhere and get me. That's what we do. It's how it works. It's what we do. We all have that. It's just some of them we take a lot more seriously than others. That's it. See,
And the beauty is allowing whatever to unfold and live in the mystery of really not knowing. And I appreciate that you said about, I don't have to trust anything. It's just watch and be present.
Yeah, and the final thing I'll say, Zoe, is one of the most helpful kind of things when we talk about our innate well-being, that beyond our current experience, beyond our thinking of ourselves, beyond our ideas of who we are, that true essence, that's okay no matter what. No matter what's happening around me, when we talk about the direction of our innate well-being, that no matter what, I'm okay. No matter what I'm feeling in this moment, no matter whatever life is throwing my way, I have to handle. But underneath all of that, at my essence, all of us at our essence are okay.
It's beautiful. And I have one question about live participation versus just getting what we can through the 3PGC conferences and the YouTube. It's all about the experience, isn't it? And having our own felt sense of that divine innate wisdom.
Yeah, and there's no way, like everyone, you're going to be drawn to something, follow where you're drawn. There's no better way. There's no right way. I mean, I know there's a couple of women I used to work with that I was at Minneapolis 3PGC conference a few years ago. And I look across the room and I see her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I go up to her. She had a profound, life-changing insight by watching videos online.
Okay.
It's there. You just follow where you're prompted, where you're drawn. There is no right way, better way for your own journey.
And to go back to the source, Sid Banks and his recordings and books.
Mm.
So thank you. Thank you for your time and for your sharing. Thank you for your support.
Thanks. Any other questions, or either chat or reflections? Chris?
I just wanted to point out the obvious, that there was a sense of you were quite accepting at being afraid of the insect. I know as silly as that sounds, but you could have done battle with that whole concept. Like, why was I afraid of the insect, and made it a real thing? But it was kind of like, yeah, I freaked out and I did the laundry or whatever you were doing and forgot about it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, like, you know, I can make a big deal when I have to, like, let's say teach and I'm nervous. There, in a flash, that can look like a problem, right? But then the understanding reminds me, it's fine. It'll pass. Teach. Show up, teach. It'll pass. All right, any other questions or final reflections, thoughts? All right, well, oh, Bonnie, is there something?
I was just going to say, Terry said, such a great talk, Barb. I love your reminder that trust is not required. And I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Kantaga said, just my take, Sid is a great source, yet not the source.
Yeah, I think, you know, Sid, if you listen to him, would say that over and over again, not to pay attention to him, but to what he was pointing to. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Barb, do you want to say anything to wrap it up?
You know, I just appreciate all of you being here, and it's been really nice being with you. And I just, you know, I think that projecting myself a little bit, just to continue to take any pressure, any constriction inside that we have to get this, or to, you know, get more grounding, or get this, just to orient yourself in the direction, like so many of you have shared, of what you're already seeing, in that feeling, you know, in that place that years ago when I would hear them say, just go for the good feeling, that everything is there. Everything is there. What used to sound like crazy town, ridiculous to me before, now I'm starting to get they actually might be onto something. So thank you all.
Thanks so much, Barb. This was really a great and fun webinar. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for leading it, Bonnie.
Yeah.
And always hosting us. Yeah.
No problem. And just want to remind everyone that the 3PGC webinars are on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And the next one is February 14th, and it's with Dr. Linda Pettit and Natasha Swerdlow.
Nice.
So hope you can join us live then. And that's it. See you all later.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You.
Goodbye.